Well, the world's 10 wealthiest men doubled their fortunes during the first 2 years of the pandemic as poverty and inequality soared. That is the claim of the British aid charity Oxfam. It is calling on governments to tax the gains made by billionaires whose wealth increased by an average rate of $1.3 billion a day. Live to Oxfam CEO Danny Sriskandarajah, who is in London. Danny, your report is called Inequality Kills. There's some big figures in there. Some people will find them quite shocking, actually. But can you tell us how you gathered your evidence, firstly?
Yes. Hi, Lucy. These figures are shocking. Oxfam and many other people have been warning us about rising inequality. But this year's data, which looks at Forbes magazine's estimates of the richest people on the planet. Forbes has since 1987 been looking at the estimated wealth of the richest people on the planet. And what we've seen in the last 2 years since the COVID pandemic began is record-breaking gains of those rich people. In fact, there's been a biggest rise in billionaire wealth since 1987. And just over the last 2 years, billionaires have gotten richer than the previous 14 years put together. So, here we are at a time of a global crisis when so many people are finding their lives more vulnerable. They're worried about rising living costs, unemployment. But the global economy seems to be working really well for the richest, who are getting eye-watering levels of accumulation.
Danny, governments around the world are spending absolutely trillions and trillions of dollars at the moment, particularly during these pandemic times. Is any of this money making its way down the chain, or where is it going, if not?
Well, it doesn't seem to be finding its way down the chain. For the first time in many years, we're seeing rising levels of poverty. It's been remarkable the progress the world has made on reducing poverty. But last year, the World Bank thinks 160 million more people were forced into poverty. And 99% of the world's population, estimates suggest, are worse off than they would have been if there hadn't been a pandemic. So something really worrying is going on, where the wealthy seem to be extracting value, perhaps because those funds that have been pumped in by governments are finding their way into assets, into real estate, into stock markets. And so those who hold wealth are having windfall gains, while for the vast majority of people on the planet, this has been a very difficult period indeed.
You're calling for a one-off tax on the world's richest people, Danny. How has that been received? Is anyone listening to that?
Well, look, what's interesting about this year's report is it includes a foreword by Abigail Disney, a very wealthy person in her own right, who represents a group called Patriotic Millionaires. And it's a growing network of ultra high net worth individuals who themselves think that very rich people need to be taxed, because they think that while philanthropy from the very rich is a good idea, it's more effective, more sustainable for us to be taxing people so that we don't see this level of wealth. And so I hope there is growing interest in this notion of taxing wealth, and particularly the windfall wealth that we've been seeing in recent years.
Danny Sriskandarajah, thank you very much for joining us, the CEO of Oxfam there.